reaching 65, 70, or beyond, comes with a wealth of experiences, lessons, and unique challenges. It's a stage of life where we want to share what we've learned, especially with our children. But have you ever stopped to think about the impact your words can have on them? Not every confession strengthens the relationship. Some, even when well-intentioned, can hurt, confuse, or create distance in ways you never imagined. Stoic wisdom and the teachings of great thinkers invite us to reflect on what we say and how we say it, because our words hold immense power. They can build bridges or raise walls. In this video, we'll explore 9 things you should never say to your children at this stage of life. Not to hide the truth, but to protect the connection you share and their emotional well-being. If you've ever wondered whether certain words might be affecting your relationship with them, or if there's a way to communicate that inspires more and weighs less, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll discover how your words can be the key to transforming that relationship and leaving a deeper, more meaningful legacy. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here, we explore how to apply Stoic wisdom and other teachings to navigate this stage of life with more purpose, balance, and serenity. Let's get started. Number 1, never imply that they don't understand you because their life was easier. It's tempting to believe that the challenges you faced throughout your life were more significant or complex than those your children have encountered. Maybe you grew up in a time when opportunities were scarce, sacrifices were necessary to move forward, and stability felt like a luxury. Perhaps you went through moments where it seemed like you carried the weight of the world on your shoulders. And while all of that is valid, using it as a benchmark to compare your children's experiences only creates distance. When you say something like, "You'll never understand what I went through because your life was easier," what you're really communicating is that their experiences don't matter as much as yours. Even if those words stem from pride in having overcome so much, they often create an emotional disconnection. Your children may feel that their own struggles aren't taken seriously, or that they will always be minimized in comparison to yours. Generational comparisons are often a dead end. Every era brings its own challenges. While you may have faced material hardships or social restrictions, your children are navigating a world that constantly demands success, visibility, and functionality amid relentless technological and emotional exposure. As Viktor Frankl once said, suffering is as subjective as the individual experiencing it. No matter its form, it always fills the space available. In other words, each generation carries its own version of uncertainty and emotional weight, even if it manifests differently. Instead of comparing life's challenges, the wisest approach is to try to understand them. If you think about your own parents or grandparents, how would it have felt if they had dismissed your struggles by saying, "Back then, we really suffered"? It might have hurt to hear that, or even made you feel misunderstood. That same disconnection may be happening now with your children when you make them feel that their experiences aren't valid in your eyes. Philosopher Alain de Botton reflected that true connection between generations doesn't come from sharing the same struggles, but from learning to see the world through each other's eyes. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything your children do or think, but you can acknowledge their struggles and challenges as legitimate, even if they differ from yours. Your experiences, though different, can be a source of inspiration rather than judgment. Instead of saying, "You wouldn't understand," try sharing how you overcame your own challenges and what you learned from them. For example, if you worked from a young age to support your family, you can talk about how that taught you to value hard work without diminishing their own achievements. Moreover, remember that sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer isn't your words, but your ability to listen. As Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." When your children share their struggles, rather than responding with a comparison, ask them more about what they're going through. Show them that their experiences matter and that even if you don't fully understand them, you are there to support them. Never imply that they can't understand you because their life was easier. Doing so may build walls instead of bridges. Remember that every generation has its own battles, and your experiences, shared with empathy and respect, can be a source of learning rather than division. In the end, as Seneca said, time teaches us that understanding doesn't come from words, but from the act of opening the heart. Number 2, never say you don't need help when you actually do. You might believe that by denying any sign of vulnerability, you're protecting your independence, something you deeply value at this stage of life. After all, you've always been the pillar of your family, the problem solver, the one with the answers. But insisting that you can handle everything, even when you know that's not entirely true, doesn't just isolate you. It also deprives your children of the chance to care for you out of love rather than obligation. The idea of needing help can be uncomfortable. Maybe you think that asking for support could be seen as a sign of weakness, or worse, that you might become a burden. But nothing could be further from the truth. Refusing help, especially when it's clear that you need it, doesn't reinforce your independence. It weakens it. In the end, those around you can see your struggles, even if you don't express them. Philosopher and writer Pema Chodron once said, "Accepting our vulnerability instead of trying to hide it is the best way to connect with others." By allowing your children to help you, you're not just giving them a chance to show their love and gratitude, you're also creating a space for mutual trust. This act, far from being a sign of weakness, is a reflection of wisdom. When you say, "I don't need anything," in moments when help would actually be welcome, you send a confusing message. On one hand, you appear strong, but on the other, you make them feel that their support isn't important or that they will never be able to do enough for you. This can lead to emotional distance, as your children might feel there's no real way to contribute to your well-being. Even the Stoics, who championed self-sufficiency, understood that mutual support is part of the natural order. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We are like hands, feet, or eyelids. We were born to work together." This doesn't mean you should become completely dependent on others, but rather that recognizing when to accept support is an act of wisdom, not weakness. Furthermore, accepting help doesn't mean giving up your autonomy. On the contrary, when you allow your children to assist you in certain areas of life, whether with physical tasks or decisions that require extra energy, you actually preserve your strength for what truly matters. For example, if accepting help with something as simple as carrying heavy bags frees you up to enjoy an afternoon with your grandchildren, why turn it down? Denying the need for help can also have serious consequences for your health. Many people at this stage of life face physical or emotional challenges that, if addressed early with the right support, can be managed without major complications. However, resisting assistance can make things worse and lead to greater dependency down the line. When you ask for help, do it with clarity and gratitude. Your children don't need long explanations or grand speeches, just the reassurance that their presence and their acts of service are meaningful to you. Saying something as simple as, "This would really help me," allows them to feel useful and connected to you. Never say you don't need help when you actually do. Admitting that you can't do everything doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Allowing your children to be there for you, even in small ways, not only strengthens your relationship, but also teaches them that true strength lies in accepting our limitations with humility and gratitude. As Epictetus said, there is no shame in needing others, but there is in not knowing how to accept them. Number 3, never speak badly about your marriage or the other parent. Never speak badly about your marriage or the other parent. And don't involve your children in the problems you had as a couple. Even if you believe that sharing these conflicts helps explain the past or justify your current emotions, in reality, you're placing a burden on them that isn't theirs to carry, one that can deeply affect their perception of love, family, and relationships. Your children didn't experience your marriage from your perspective, nor should they bear the weight of your conflicts. While they were part of the family unit, their experience was different from yours. For them, that marriage, with all its flaws and virtues, formed the emotional foundation upon which they built their own values and memories. Talking to them about your relationship struggles, even from a seemingly neutral standpoint, can plant seeds of doubt and confusion. Rather than helping them understand, you risk fracturing the image they've built for themselves and exposing them to conflicts they cannot resolve, because they were never theirs to begin with. Imagine if, during your childhood, one of your parents had confided in you about their most personal disagreements and arguments with the other. It likely would have made you question not just that parent, but also the stability of your entire world. These kinds of revelations, no matter how honest, rarely offer anything positive. Instead, they create emotional fractures and leave lasting scars on a child's perception of family. Epictetus once said, "What disturbs us is not events themselves, but our opinions about them." When you share your relationship struggles with your children, they don't just hear the facts. They absorb your emotional interpretation of those events. This can unconsciously force them to take sides, divide their loyalties, or feel responsible for something they were never meant to fix. This isn't about lying or painting an unrealistic picture of the past. It's about keeping certain aspects of that experience to yourself, out of emotional generosity. The memories and conflicts that were significant to you don't have to negatively shape your children's lives. Moreover, even if your intentions are not harmful, speaking about relationship issues with your children can affect how they approach their own relationships. If they grow up hearing that their model of love was filled with conflict, they might develop fears about commitment or question their ability to build a healthy relationship. They may even unconsciously repeat the patterns they heard about, assuming that constant conflict is just part of any romantic relationship. Instead of sharing the disagreements and hardships you faced as a couple, use those lessons to provide meaningful guidance. You might say something like, "Over the years, I've learned that communication and respect are essential in any relationship." Statements like these, rather than burdening them with your history, offer them practical wisdom they can apply in their own lives. If pain or resentment from your past relationship still lingers, remember that those feelings don't need to be shared in order to heal. There are other, healthier spaces for processing them: therapy, a support group, or even personal reflection. As Viktor Frankl wisely said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Choosing not to share your relationship struggles with your children is a way of protecting them and showing that your love for them transcends your own wounds. Never speak badly about your marriage or involve your children in the problems you had with your partner. They don't need to know the details of your conflicts because those experiences aren't theirs and offer them nothing constructive. Instead, focus on strengthening the bond you share with them and providing a balanced, healthy perspective on relationships. That way, you leave them a legacy of respect and wisdom rather than an unnecessary burden. Number 4, never say that what happens to you no longer matters. These words, though often spoken with the intention of easing your children's worries about your well-being, can be devastating for both them and you. Saying that your life no longer matters can come across as giving up on your dreams, your purpose, or even your own self-care. And when your children hear something like that, the message they receive isn't one of reassurance, but of resignation and abandonment. It's understandable that at this stage of life, you might feel like your role in the world has changed. Maybe you no longer have the same professional or family responsibilities, or perhaps you believe you've already contributed enough. But the truth is, every day is still an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to share something valuable with others. Even if your children are now adults, they still need to see you as an example of how to live with dignity and purpose until the very end, not as someone who has chosen to withdraw from life. When you say that what happens to you no longer matters, you're depriving your children of the opportunity to be present for you, to show their love and care. You take away the emotional connection that comes from looking after one another, from sharing moments, from simply being together in the years you still have. And most importantly, you deprive yourself of receiving the love and attention you deserve. As Carl Jung wrote, life does not end when we stop working or when our children leave. It ends when we stop finding meaning in what we do. Finding purpose doesn't have to mean big projects or ambitious goals. It often lies in the small things. Taking care of your health, sharing your stories, supporting your children or grandchildren with wisdom, or simply appreciating everyday moments with gratitude. Stoicism also teaches us that every stage of life has its own intrinsic value. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "Live as if you had little time left, but live fully without wasting what you can still be." No matter your age, you always have something to offer, even if it's just to yourself. By saying that what happens to you no longer matters, you overlook the impact you can still have, whether it's inspiring your loved ones, finding joy in simple pleasures, or leaving a lasting imprint on the hearts of those around you. Your children need to see you taking care of yourself, not for them, but for yourself. They need to know that you still value the years ahead, that you are nurturing your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. If they see that you've given up on yourself, it will be hard for them to find the peace of mind they seek at this stage of their own lives. Of course, this doesn't mean you should hide your worries or struggles, but there is a difference between sharing your emotions with vulnerability and surrendering to resignation. Instead of saying, "It doesn't matter what happens to me anymore," try saying, "I'm learning to embrace this stage of life with serenity and taking care of myself in the best way I can." These words not only show strength, but also a commitment to your own well-being. Saying that what happens to you no longer matters is closing the door to new experiences, connections, and lessons. Never underestimate the impact you can still have, whether it's by inspiring your children with your wisdom, appreciating life's small joys, or finding beauty in the simplest moments. Every day matters because you still have something to offer, even if it's just your calm and present existence in the world. In the end, your children don't need to hear that you've given up. They need to see that you still value life, even in its quieter moments. That attitude will not only bring them peace, but also teach them how to approach their own aging with gratitude and purpose. As Seneca said, "No man is useless as long as he can be useful to himself." Make your life meaningful, not just for them, but because you still have the power to do so. If you found yourself learning new ways to strengthen your relationship with your children while applying Stoic wisdom to live with more serenity and purpose, I invite you to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps me continue creating valuable content for those looking to navigate this stage of life with dignity and emotional connection. Let me know. Where are you listening from? I'd love to hear from you. And stay until the end, because lesson number 9 has the power to completely transform the way you communicate with your children and how they see you. Let's continue. Number 5, never use your regrets to influence their decisions. At some point, we all look back and wonder how life might have turned out if we had chosen a different path. Maybe it was a career you didn't pursue, a love you let go of, a place you never dared to move to. It's natural to feel regret over what could have been. However, those feelings are yours. They stem from your experiences, your choices, and your unique circumstances. Your children should not bear the weight of those emotions, nor should their decisions be shaped by the regrets you carry. When you express your regrets in a way that influences your children's choices, you send a dangerous message. That fear of making the wrong decision should dictate their lives. Phrases like, "I never had the courage and I've always regretted it, so you should do things differently," or "Don't take that path, I did, and it was a mistake," may seem like well-intentioned advice, but what they really communicate is that your past missteps are unavoidable warnings for them. This mindset prevents them from learning through their own experiences and instead pushes them to live according to your fears and expectations. Psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The only person who can truly decide how to live their life is the one living it." While your regrets may be full of lessons, your children have the right and the need to make their own decisions, even if that means making mistakes. By framing your past as a cautionary tale, you take away their opportunity to build their own path and discover what life has to teach them. Stoicism offers a powerful perspective on this as well. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to accept the past with serenity. What has happened cannot be undone. What matters is how we choose to face it now. Instead of projecting your regrets onto your children, turn those experiences into a source of wisdom for yourself. Reflect on what you've learned and how you can apply those lessons to your present without interfering in your children's autonomy. When you shape your children's decisions based on your regrets, you also risk giving them a narrow view of life. For example, if you tell them that choosing a certain career left you feeling trapped, they might conclude that any decision they make will feel equally restrictive. This can lead to fear, insecurity, and emotional paralysis that prevents them from moving forward. It's important to recognize that your children live in a different world than you did. Even if their choices seem similar to yours on the surface, the circumstances, tools, and opportunities available to them are different. Your regrets are not a universal formula that should dictate their future. As Viktor Frankl said, every human being has a unique mission to fulfill, an opportunity that no one else can live for them. Rather than using your regrets as warnings, share them as reflections. Instead of saying, "I made that choice and it was a mistake," try saying, "If I could go back, I might have done things differently. But what I learned shaped who I am today." This approach offers valuable insight without imposing it as an absolute truth. And remember, your children, just like you, have the right to make mistakes. Let them fail. Let them learn. Instead of trying to shield them from every wrong turn, offer them unconditional support so they know you'll be there no matter what they decide. That trust will help them grow with confidence and independence. Never use your regrets to influence your children's decisions. Your mistakes belong to you, and your children need the freedom to make their own. By respecting their autonomy and sharing your experiences with wisdom and empathy, you give them something far more valuable: the confidence to fully embrace life and learn from every step they take, just as you have in yours. As Seneca wisely said, "We do not live to regret the past, but to build the present and the future." Let your reflections be a guiding light, not a chain. Number 6, never make them feel responsible for your well-being. Without realizing it, you may be sending your children the message that their presence, decisions, or support are essential for your happiness or stability. While this expectation often comes from love or a need for connection, it places an unnecessary emotional burden on them. Your children should never feel responsible for maintaining your physical or emotional well-being. That responsibility should remain, as much as possible, with you. When you say things like, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have a reason to keep going," or "I only feel okay when you're around." It may seem like an expression of affection, but these words put your children in a difficult position. They may feel that in order to meet these expectations, they have to sacrifice their own peace, relationships, or even personal dreams. Over time, this dynamic can lead to resentment, guilt, or even emotional distance. Psychologist Esther Perel reflects that while family bonds are essential, they should never become chains that restrict a person's autonomy. A healthy relationship with your children should be based on connection and mutual respect, not emotional dependence. Your children should feel that their love for you is a choice, not a constant obligation. Stoicism also reminds us that our inner peace should never be entirely dependent on external factors, not even on the people we love. Epictetus said, "It is not others who make you happy or unhappy. That is always in your hands." This doesn't mean you should isolate yourself or reject your children's support, but rather that your well-being should come from within, not from an unspoken expectation placed upon them. When children feel responsible for their parents' well-being, they can carry an emotional burden that limits their ability to fully live their own lives. They may hesitate to move away, make important decisions, or dedicate time to their own goals out of fear that doing so will negatively affect you. While this dynamic may seem like an expression of love, it actually restricts their freedom and prevents them from growing as individuals. Instead of expressing dependence, show them that you appreciate their support, but are also capable of taking care of yourself. You might say, "I'm really grateful for what you do for me, but I want you to know that I'm working on staying well on my own." This reassures them that while you value their help, your well-being does not rest entirely on their shoulders. It's also important to take practical steps to maintain your independence as much as possible. If you're concerned about your physical health, look for ways to stay active, whether through age-appropriate exercise, regular medical checkups, or a balanced diet. If emotional well-being is a challenge, consider engaging in fulfilling activities like social groups, volunteering, or exploring new hobbies. Of course, accepting support from your children is natural and positive, but it should come from a place of balance, not dependence. When they choose to help you because they want to, not because they feel obligated, your relationship strengthens, and both of you feel more connected. Never make them feel responsible for your well-being. Let them love and support you from a place of freedom, not guilt or duty. By taking care of yourself, you not only reinforce your own independence, but also teach them a powerful lesson, that love and connection are strongest when they come from choice, not burden. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul that depends on itself is free, and its freedom is the greatest gift it can offer to others." Make your well-being an inspiration, not someone else's responsibility. Number 7, never talk about your financial problems carelessly. It's natural for financial concerns to weigh more heavily at this stage of life, especially when income sources are limited and medical or daily expenses seem increasingly demanding. However, sharing these struggles with your children without care or reflection can create an emotional burden that not only fails to solve anything, but may also complicate your relationship with them. Speaking openly about financial difficulties without context or restraint can instill feelings of instability and anxiety. Even if your children are adults, they may feel pressured to step in or take on a responsibility that isn't theirs. Phrases like, "I don't know how I'm going to pay for this," or "I'm worried the money won't be enough," may seem like a simple way to vent, but what your children might actually hear is, "I can't handle this on my own, and you'll have to help me." This kind of communication can create unnecessary tension and affect their own sense of security. Psychotherapist Virginia Satir once said, "Communication is not just what we say, but how we make others feel with our words." When discussing financial concerns, the tone and intention matter as much as the content. Expressing your worries in a balanced way, focusing on solutions rather than the problem, can completely shift the dynamic. Stoicism also provides valuable insight on this topic. Seneca, who deeply reflected on the nature of wealth, reminds us, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This doesn't mean ignoring financial challenges, but rather learning to manage them with calmness, showing your children that even in difficult times, you trust in your ability to adapt and find solutions. Speaking carelessly about your finances can also limit your children's choices. They might feel guilty for wanting to invest in their own families, move to a new city, or take professional risks. They may even develop a fear of letting you down, believing that any financial struggles you face are somehow a consequence of their decisions. This kind of emotional burden is not only unfair, but can also damage their independence and self-confidence. Instead of sharing financial concerns impulsively, consider approaching the topic constructively. If you need support, express it clearly and without unnecessary dramatization. "I'm reviewing my budget and would appreciate your input on this." This approach prevents them from feeling obligated to take on your financial burdens while inviting them to contribute voluntarily from a place of support rather than duty. Additionally, explore alternatives before turning to them for help. Look into available resources, such as financial counseling, budget adjustments, or community programs that may offer assistance. Demonstrating that you are actively taking steps to care for yourself reassures them and strengthens their confidence in your ability to handle life's challenges. Talking about money with your children doesn't have to be taboo, but it should be done with care. Instead of unloading your worries on them, use these conversations as an opportunity to share wisdom about financial responsibility. For example, instead of saying, "I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills," you might say, "One of the lessons I've learned is that living within our means brings more peace." Never talk about your financial problems carelessly, because what your children need is not to take on your concerns, but to see you managing them with calmness and responsibility. By addressing this topic with balance and wisdom, you protect their emotional well-being and strengthen your relationship, building it on mutual respect and trust. As Epictetus said, "What matters is not what you have, but how you choose to face it." Use your words to inspire, not to burden. Number 8. Never say that the only thing that matters is their happiness because you weren't happy. These words, though they may seem like a sincere expression of love, carry an emotional weight that your children should not have to bear. Beneath this statement lies a projection of your own unfulfilled expectations, an emotional transfer that doesn't inspire them, but instead places a burden on their shoulders, leaving them with a sense of indebtedness to you. When you say something like this, you send a conflicting message. On one hand, you express that you want the best for them, but at the same time, you imply that their happiness is the only way to compensate for what you feel you lacked in your own life. This can create guilt and an unnecessary sense of pressure. Your children might start to believe that any mistake, failure, or hardship they experience is not just a personal challenge, but a betrayal of your sacrifices or proof that they've let you down. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Maturity is having regained the seriousness one had as a child at play." Your children's happiness should be a natural outcome of their own journey, their choices, their experiences, and their growth, not an imposed obligation. Telling them they must be happy because you weren't turns their pursuit of fulfillment into a duty, robbing them of the freedom to define what happiness truly means to them. Your children don't need to know whether or not you are completely happy. What they need is to see you at peace with your life. To know that, like everyone, you experienced both joy and hardship, but ultimately found value in everything you lived. When you present yourself as someone who never found happiness but expects them to, you unintentionally model a sense of resignation that may influence their own perception of what it means to live fully. Additionally, this type of statement can make your children see happiness as a perfect, uninterrupted state they must achieve to meet your expectations. But happiness is not a straight line or a single destination. It's a journey filled with ups and downs, moments of joy and challenges that, when faced with courage, enrich life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Find serenity in accepting what has already happened and focus on what you can still do." This Stoic wisdom reminds us that instead of dwelling on what you didn't achieve, you can use your experiences to inspire your children in a healthier way. Rather than projecting your unfulfilled desires onto them, you can share the lessons you've learned and how those experiences helped you find deeper meaning in life. For example, instead of saying, "The only thing I want is for you to be happy because I wasn't," you could say, "I've learned that happiness is built in small moments and in how we face life. I hope you find your own path, and I will always be here to support you." This message is not only more positive, but it also gives them the freedom to explore and define happiness for themselves without feeling the weight of your expectations. Remember, your children don't need to be happy to make up for what you lacked. They need the freedom to be themselves. Allow them to make mistakes, experience sadness, and learn from their struggles, because that too is part of happiness. And instead of focusing on what you felt was missing from your life, show them that true fulfillment comes from embracing life as it is, with everything it has to offer. Never say that the only thing that matters is their happiness because you weren't happy. By freeing them from that burden, you also free yourself from the weight of what could have been, allowing yourself to find peace and gratitude for what you have now. As Viktor Frankl said, happiness is not something to be pursued, it is the byproduct of living with purpose and meaning. Let your legacy be the example of how to find that purpose without conditions or emotional debts. Number 9, never constantly remind them how much you sacrificed for them. Raising your children undoubtedly required difficult decisions, sacrifices, and efforts that only you fully understand. However, bringing this up repeatedly, no matter how noble your intention, can weaken your relationship rather than strengthen it. Constantly reminding them of everything you gave up for them risks turning love into an emotional transaction, potentially leaving them with feelings of guilt, obligation, or resentment. True sacrifice does not need to be proclaimed. Its value lies in having been made out of love and virtue, not in the expectation of constant recognition. Epictetus put it best, "Do what is right, not because someone will acknowledge it, but because it is the right thing to do." Your children don't need a constant recounting of what you did for them. What they truly need is to know that your choices came from a place of selfless love, not from a need for lifelong gratitude. When you continuously remind them of your sacrifices, they may start to wonder if they will ever be able to repay you. This emotional debt can be harmful, as it shifts your relationship from one based on love to one based on obligation. Even if they try to please you, they will be acting out of guilt rather than genuine appreciation for the love they received. Imagine how you would feel if someone you deeply cared for constantly reminded you of all they had done for you. Would it make you feel more connected, or would it eventually become an emotional burden? The same happens with your children when they feel they can never fully measure up to everything you sacrificed for them. Additionally, focusing on past sacrifices keeps your relationship anchored in what was, rather than allowing it to evolve into what it can be. At this stage of your life, the most valuable thing you can offer your children is not a record of past efforts, but a present connection that inspires and teaches them how to navigate their own challenges. Seneca wisely stated, "Love given with the expectation of something in return is never complete." This doesn't mean you don't deserve to feel valued, but genuine parental love seeks no reward. It finds fulfillment in knowing you did the right thing. Your sacrifices have already served their purpose. They shaped the children you have today. Now it's time to let them live their lives without feeling bound by the need to pay you back. Instead of constantly reminding them of what you gave up, focus on enjoying the relationship you have now. Share your memories with joy, not expectation. For example, instead of saying, "I gave up so much for you," you could say, "Raising you was an experience that taught me so much, and I'm proud of who you are today." This shift in language removes the emotional weight and strengthens your bond from a place of mutual gratitude. If you feel the need to validate your efforts, do so from a place of internal acceptance. Acknowledge to yourself what you did and take pride in it without seeking constant validation from others. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." When you find that peace within yourself, you won't need to search for it elsewhere. Never constantly remind them how much you sacrifice for them. Let go of that narrative and allow your relationship to be built in the present, free from any lingering debts of the past. By doing so, you give your children the freedom to love you unconditionally, and you give yourself the chance to truly enjoy the fruits of your sacrifices, a deeper, more honest, and freer connection with them. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The reward of virtue is in the act itself." Your sacrifices have already spoken for you. Now let love do the talking. Being mindful of what we say to our children is not just an act of love, but also of wisdom. At this stage of life, every word we choose can either build a bridge toward connection or erect a wall that creates distance. Stoic philosophy, along with the teachings of so many great thinkers, reminds us that we always have the power to decide how to respond, how to influence, and how to guide, even in our later years. By applying these lessons, you not only protect your children from unnecessary burdens, but you also give yourself the gift of a deeper, more authentic relationship with them. Life continues to offer opportunities to grow, to lead by example, and to live with purpose. Your words, when spoken with love and serenity, have the power to inspire more than you may realize. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time on the channel, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming topics we'll be exploring. And if you've made it this far, it's because you truly care about the impact you leave on your children and those around you, and that deserves recognition. To see who's truly committed and made it to the end, comment the phrase, "I am a Stoic," and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from and who's on this journey of reflection with me. And before you go, don't forget to share this video with someone who might need it. Sometimes, a simple message can be exactly what another person needs to hear today. A small gesture can make a big difference. See you in the next video.